My name is James Macleary. I am a Director of Breakthrough Communications. I have sort of 10, 15 years experience sort of delivering national communication strategies. And also I'm a local councillor. I'm a town councillor where I live. So hopefully lots of applicable experience. We're going to talk today very briefly sort of about how to use social media to engage your community. I've picked out some sort of key points that I think are useful on these slides, and I hope that we'll go through them, and at the end, I'm very happy to take a few questions if we've got time, but I'm conscious that time is short, so I will not labour too many points for too long. Most of these slides are taken out of training sessions that we do with county associations across the country, and some of you may have attended some of our sessions. So it's sort of worth pointing out that each of these slides probably represents a 2-hour session on its own. So there's quite a lot of information here to get through. So starting out, how councils benefit from social media. And I'm sure that some of you, or probably most of you, are already making use of social media, whether that's simply using something like Facebook, or whether you're using a range of platforms to communicate with your community. But social media, as the question showed, has grown enormously in its relevance to our sector in the last couple of years. And as I said, that's been accelerated by the pandemic. And we've certainly found as a business to provide support in this area that demand has increased, and the use of virtual platforms like this one has made it a lot easier to provide that kind of training and expert support to people. But increasingly, we're seeing residents access their services digitally, and also an expectation that information and signposting is available via social media. And social media presents a huge number of opportunities for councils and councillors to connect better with their communities. It allows them to reach out and engage with residents across many age groups, especially the harder to reach residents who may not otherwise engage with councils or councillors. And we see this particularly when we're talking about younger age groups and more deprived communities who are very unlikely to engage directly in something like a formal meeting, for instance. So it's a very good way of broadening your reach within the community. It's an opportunity to be a listening ear to your community, listening to local concerns, issues, what's being talked about on social media, what people are saying, what people are interested in. A very good way of getting an idea of the landscape locally and getting outside perhaps the bubble that sometimes forms within our councils when we talk to each other and we think we know what the priorities are. Actually, it can be social media is a good way of sometimes finding that residents have different priorities in different areas. It's a really good way of reporting back to residents about issues, the work of the council, and also work that people are doing as councillors or that the council as a corporate body is doing. Reporting back is one of the most important ways of demonstrating value to residents. Obviously, we all have to suffer from the unfortunate situation sometimes where people complain that their council tax is not being well spent and it's not good value for money and the councils don't do anything. And indeed, in fact, reporting back via social media is a particularly good way of pushing back against that misconception that in some way councils are raking in large amounts of money and just sitting on it, which is obviously not true in anyone's case. So it's a very good way of reporting back. It's also a good way of reporting back if you've conducted any sort of outreach to the community, such as a survey, which is something we work with a lot of councils on, doing large-scale annual surveys, neighbourhood plan consultations, or any kind of survey or consultation you've carried out. Vital to report back the findings of that so people know what it said. Keeping in touch with local groups, organisations and businesses. Social media presents a fantastic opportunity to do that because you're able to tag people, you're able to bring people into the discussion. And finally, simply disseminating information from your council and feedback from any questions. Important little note for councillors like me, if you're using social media, you're usually acting in your own capacity as an individual councillor and not formally representing the council. All we mean by that is it's quite often raised with us when we're having these sorts of discussions with councillors and officers. But it's important to say that you've got to be careful to make sure you're showing that you're only representing your own views, not the corporate views of the council if something hasn't yet been agreed at a council meeting. So there are lots of ways that councils can benefit from social media, and indeed councillors as individuals can also make use of social media. And one of the questions we get a lot is, what platforms should I focus on? What should I use as an individual councillor? What should the council use as a corporate body? Because there's a dizzying array of social media platforms out there. They rise and fall at a tremendous rate. However, in this country, there is effectively one dominant platform, which is Facebook. And Facebook, this graph here shows favorite social media platforms of internet users aged 16 to 64, as opposed to user numbers. In terms of user numbers, Facebook would be even further ahead than it is on there. Instagram has grown enormously in recent years, and as I'm sure many of you know, Facebook is actually the owner of Instagram, so it's the same company. Facebook, though, remains the dominant platform in this country. There are others that councils use. A lot of councils make use of Twitter, and sometimes even the odd other one. But the three main ones would be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And it's important to think of it as less what should I use and more why am I using it. They all do quite different things. Facebook is your all-purpose platform, which is very good for broadcasting and reaching a very large audience. It's also very good for engagement and getting people involved in the council. It does those things very well. Instagram is a image-led, video-led platform, very good for showcasing things and showing off your area or the council, or if you run, if you're an area that has a lot of tourism, it can be extremely useful for that, and also reaching a younger audience. Instagram has a much younger demographic than other platforms. And Twitter has a much smaller audience, but it's much more concentrated. Very good for engaging with stakeholders, very good for engaging with journalists and other community organizations who you can bring into your tweets. So it's important to note that there are lots out there, but we always say to people, start with Facebook. Do Facebook well before you worry about the other ones, because Facebook remains the dominant social media platform in this country. It also remains the platform that has by far the largest reach across all demographics, including age groups, gender, and every other demographic that we have. So content. When people say to us, we want to make more use of social media. What platforms should we use? How do we reach more people? With social media, content is king. It's all about what you post on there, because what you're trying to achieve with your content is engagement and to get a conversation going. And in order to do that, you can look at different types of content. We've put 4 types here. There are other kinds of content you can look at, but thinking about your content quite carefully is very important, because on social media, content is king. Providing news and information pieces from your council or local groups, keeping people informed and updated is, if you like, is your bread and butter. This is kind of the stock content that you would expect from a council. It's the sort of thing that you can share into other Facebook groups. So if you have in your town or village a such and such gossip or something or other notice board, then you can share it in there and increase the reach of your posts. You can signpost to your council services and services provided by other organisations. You can ask questions to find out what people are thinking about different issues. And asking questions is one of the best ways of getting people into a discussion. People like being asked things. Facebook has things like a built-in polling mechanism, which allows you to take quick polls of people. Those things tend to get shared quite widely. So asking people questions, trying to get their opinions, is a really good way of engaging people on social media. And sharing content from elsewhere. Local councillors, other local councillors, local councils, local community groups, local MP, whoever it is, sharing content on your own page to make it a kind of a lively place that's a go-to for people. And when we talk about the type of content, there's sort of some key things as well that underpin that in terms of how it looks. It's vital to understand, and I'll run across it very quickly because it gets quite complicated really, but how Facebook and other social media platforms work. They all have an algorithm behind them, and that prioritizes things or deprioritizes them, depending on the type of content. Again, that's why I say content is king. Engaging content that uses imagery, or better still, video, will get prioritized by Facebook. So Facebook will push it up people's feeds. And what that means is if your Facebook page and your council has 500 followers, if you simply put up a text-only post that doesn't get much engagement, it will simply sink like a stone. Very few of your followers will see it. If, on the other hand, you post a video, Facebook will put that in front of a lot more of your followers, meaning a lot more people will see it. And of course, the product of that is more people will engage with it. And the more people engage with it, the more people will see it. It becomes a virtuous circle and it starts to snowball. Facebook's algorithm basically looks for content which people are talking about. And it then says, okay, people are interested in this. I'm going to show it to more people because it's clearly interesting. And of course, that's how you get snowballing of quite negative content as well, because if people put provocative things on, that's going to get a lot of interest. And Facebook's algorithm simply says, lots of people are talking about it. I'm going to put it in front of more people. But it's worth thinking about with your own content, how to make it as engaging as possible so that more people will see it. In terms of bringing your social media to life, there are a few tips that we tend to give to councils across the board. One is be authentic and do what you feel and act the same way as you would in your day-to-day life. People can get very anxious about the way they come across on social media. But being authentic is absolutely crucial. Being yourselves and putting across things that are real and are about what the council actually does. And or if you're doing it in your individual capacity as a councillor, your authentic voice, how you actually sound. Build up a conversation. You're more likely to get comments to respond to, and people appreciate you're engaging them. So building that conversation and ensuring you're responding to things. So that's how you get the conversation going. If somebody replies to one of your posts and doesn't get a response, they'll think that it's gone into the ether and no one noticed it. So it's very important that you acknowledge that, even if it's just to like it quickly with a little thumbs up. That's enough, just to show that someone noticed it. And the more of that you do, the more people think it's worthwhile engaging positively with the content that you post. And as I just said, using images or even better a video to tell a story, even if it's just a generic photo. And there are several generic stock photo sites, free ones out there, which you can use. Images are always better than just text, always, for the reasons I just outlined. Facebook will, and Instagram and Twitter, but particularly Facebook, will always reward you for using imagery or even better video. And video is a particularly key media in the current landscape as all social media evolves. Video is the area that is growing fastest. And when you look across Facebook, when you look at Instagram, when you look at YouTube, these are increasingly video-driven social media, and it's worth thinking about how you might be able to make use of short videos just to illustrate what you're doing. It's always worth thinking about as well from the perspective of people often think that it's difficult to do a video. I'm doing one right now, and every one of you who is using Zoom right now could simply record themselves in the next 5 minutes. It's very easy to do, and that could be uploaded straight onto Facebook. And the beauty of video is that if you have something quite complicated or quite lengthy to explain, rather than putting 1,000 words of text up, actually conveying it verbally means you can get a lot across in, say, 2 minutes. So it's well worth thinking about how you might use video from a lot of perspectives. It's very valuable. Going back to that authentic voice, people often talk to us as well about, how should I sound? Well, social media is extremely chatty and it's very personal in style. It's kind of up to the council or the councillor in question how they want to come across. Some of the things we would always advise, though, is avoiding what we would call council speak and acronyms that might make your content inaccessible or irrelevant. It's really important because councillors and councils slip into this kind of council speak very, very easily. We use it to each other all the time. We refer to councils by their acronyms. The general public have no idea what you're talking about. And if you start using a lot of acronyms, they will lose interest very quickly because they simply won't know what they stand for and they haven't got time to look them all up. It's crucial not to assume prior knowledge when you're posting. If you're posting about something that's happened at the council, even if it's something that you think a lot of people do know about, you should always post assuming no prior knowledge, because the reality is the majority of people won't know what it's about. And if you post something that people don't understand, they're not going to engage with it, and it's a waste of everybody's time. So 4 things to go away and try today. So if you don't have one already, set up a council Facebook page, like or join local Facebook pages and groups, and where possible do so using your page. Groups don't always let you like using your page, but it's well worth looking at doing it. Try writing a post on your page and sharing it to relevant groups in your community to see how people engage, and share a piece of relevant content on your page from another source, other councillors, councils, MPs, local media, your services and organisations. Those would be our sort of 4 top tips to try straight away if you're not already doing them. And if you need guidance on anything from Facebook, as in how to set up a page, how to set up a use video on Facebook, Facebook itself has lots and lots of advice and lots of instructional videos on how to do this. And we would always point people to those. And of course, you can always talk to us. And one final thing, just before I see if there are any questions that people want to ask, and if anyone can hear a crying baby in the background, I do apologize. My 2-year-old's just come home. We do a free social media health check. We've done this with about 100 councils across the country now. It's completely free of charge. You can access it via our website to sign up, and we just review and report on your council's social media, meet with you one-to-one, brief you on what we found. And we found with a lot of people, it allows them to do very simple, quick, free changes to their social media to improve their output. And we find they've been very valuable. So please do have a look at that. Feel free to sign up. It's entirely free of charge. And I'm happy to pick up any questions if people have them.